All right, Mike Watkins, HurricaneTrack.com and HurricaneAnalytics.com with an update. The first one on what is now Hurricane Laura in the central Gulf of Mexico, which is moving toward the coast of the United States. And we've got about 36 to 48 hours longer before this makes landfall sometime late tomorrow night or early on Thursday. This is a visible image of the hurricane as the sun is going down over the Gulf of Mexico. What we see right now is a fairly solidly shaped hurricane. Essentially, notice what probably was somewhat of a banding type I that had developed in the middle of this earlier in the day. That's kind of gone away, but it's really more of a function of the fact that the storm is actually getting a little bit better organized, and this is what I want to show you about that. So this is a mid-level water vapor loop, which shows kind of in the middle levels where it's really critical for hurricanes to have moisture to work with. It shows what's going on there. And so what you can see, especially in the last, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 hours now, notice when we start out here, I got to get a better color than that. When we start out here, there's a little pocket of dry air or the remnants of what may have been a banding type I. That's filling in now, and what we're seeing is some bursting here on the western side of the convection, which suggests that the storm is working its way through that dry air. Should that continue and it kind of works this out, or at least gets it centered in the middle of the storm and redevelops an eye, that would certainly be a case for intensification. But at least right now there's some factors going on that would affect that. So this is a map of all of the different satellite fixes for what was Tropical Storm and briefly Hurricane Marco. So every single time we picked a center, or somebody in the government found a center for the storm, this is where it was. Now look what's happening when we add Laura to the picture. So notice here, and I can zoom in on that even to make it a little bit easier, notice that it's starting to cross the path that Marco was on. So what we saw in the sea surface temperatures there in the Gulf of Mexico where Marco was, he left a cold, or that storm left a cold wake, and now Laura had passed right over the middle of that cold wake earlier in the day. Because it's moving pretty quickly, it's probably a little bit further west now than it was before. And so it's starting to get out of the influence of that cold wake. And once you reach, or once the storm gets pretty much past this point, all the water is above normal or normal for this time of year, which is extremely hot. So it's going to have some fuel to work with as it kind of tracks in this general direction here, and then ultimately makes landfall someplace. And we don't know if it's going to be, this far east or this far west. There's still some uncertainty in the sense that we don't know the exact details in which wobble could cause what thing. If we look at the model guidance, the models suggest, there we got to clean off again, a fairly tight grouping here in extreme western Louisiana around Lake Charles. But any little wobble to the left, and now you're talking about, Houston, Galveston, Bolivar Peninsula could be at least impacted more than it would look like on this forecast. So I guess the point being, even though the models are very tight agreement here on very extreme eastern Texas or very extreme western Louisiana, any little wobble could take it outside this. So again, it's not best to keep your eye on exactly where the line is going to be, because also the effects are going to spread way out, especially to the east and center. So we could have tropical storm force winds over most of the coast of Louisiana. And then as the storm continues to get better organized, now we're going to have stronger tropical storm force winds coming back this way. And that's going to put some tremendous, it could push some water out of the bay here. But the point is, if it comes in just a little bit further, now you're bringing hurricane force winds in off the ocean from that side. And trust me, I know from experience in Texas what that's like. Looking, let's see, is there anything else that I wanted to show you here? Nope. No, that's an animation. I don't really want to get into that now. The intensity guidance here. Here we go. So at this point, most of the models are forecasting somewhere between a Category 1 and a Category 2 hurricane. The official forecast is actually a little bit stronger for a Category 3 hurricane. The only model that's currently showing this is the HWRF, at least as of right now, which is a hurricane-specific model. But even that is kind of suggesting, that doesn't mean that it's wrong. So hurricane centers are taking the path of least regret, understanding that Laura could become entering an environment where it could rapidly strengthen over the next 24 hours. And we simply don't know when those cycles are going to end. Sometimes it's because of shear increases, sometimes because of wall replacement cycles. There's many reasons that those bouts of rapid intensification end, but ending in a category 2 or continuing to strengthen beyond or above the threshold to be a major hurricane, there's not a lot of difference when you're talking about the difference between, say, 95 knots and 100 knots or 110 to 150 miles per hour. In terms of the absolute impact, it's very little. So people along that coast in the warning area should be prepared for a category 3 or a major hurricane, which means a significant disruption of things over time. So let's go back here to the satellite image, and this is the other thing I wanted to show you real quick, and that's this giant trough that's sitting up here. This is going to erode the ridging to the north of Laura, and so as this advances kind of this way, the dome of high pressure that's keeping Laura moving west-northwest is also going to start to slide away, and that'll give Laura a chance to kind of sneak around and then become make landfall in about the next day or two. Even though the remnants of Marco are still somewhere in here, it's really such a small system that it's not having any impact at all on where Laura is going. There was some talk about maybe having 2 hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time. Obviously, that didn't work out. There's a reason that doesn't happen very often, but from a mesoscale or a storm scale perspective, Laura is a much larger cyclone than Marco was, and it basically is involving more of the atmosphere around it. And then the other thing to watch, and this is the last thing I'll talk about tonight, and then we'll get into more detail maybe tomorrow, there's an upper low sitting back here. If they get in the right position, and you can see where this is happening a little bit already, it can vent the outflow of the hurricane and give it an opportunity to strengthen a little bit more. Now, it's a close call, right? Because what if it were able to move a little bit further and catch kind of underneath the storm and maybe cause some shear? Well, that's entirely possible. But at the moment, it looks like the upper levels are going to be pretty favorable for strengthening, and I would not be surprised overnight if we see a distinct CDO type eye develop in the middle of all this. But so summary, major hurricane, folks on the Louisiana, Texas coast need to prepare. I think this round of somewhat weakening is almost over. In fact, hurricane hunters in the storm right now report a extrapolated pressure of 984 millibars. That's down 7 from the last pressure fix that they got earlier today. So it has strengthened some from a pressure perspective, and the winds are a little bit stronger than they were before. And there's no reason to think that trend won't continue at least through tonight and into tomorrow. So please, obviously, if you're watching this, thanks for doing that. Keep an eye on things over the next day or two, and we'll see where Laura ultimately makes landfall. Mike Watkins, HurricaneTrack.com, Hurricane Analytics. Thanks for watching this update tonight.